Erev Tov, everyone. One of the subjects that the Torah addresses in this week's parsha is that of the Ktoret. The formula for creating the powder of the incense that was in the Mishkan and later in the Beit HaMikdash. The Ktoret is representative of an idea that appears often in the Torah, is that the very same object or behavior or instrument that can be the source of life and of healing is also the most dangerous and lethal of all substances that exist. So the Torah, for instance, we will have later, when there was tragically a Mageifa amongst the Jewish people in the desert. There was a plague. So Aaron HaKohen, and then Elazar later, stood between the people, and he brought the Ktoret, V'ateyotzar HaMageifa, and it stopped the plague. So that's a remarkable thing, that Ktoret has within it this positive power to benefit human beings, to prevent plagues, to avoid tragedy. On the other hand, we also have in the Torah that Nadav and Avihu brought Ktoret and that destroyed them. And then later on, by Adat Korach, so they also brought Ktoret, and that was the source of their death. So you have here a formula, so to speak, that on one hand is the most beneficial possible, and on the other hand is lethal and dangerous and destructive. So how do we look at that? So Chazal looked at it simply. It depends who brings it and when it's brought. What's the purpose? In other words, there is a kavanah, an intent by the one who is bringing the Ktoret that influences what the Ktoret will accomplish. So if there's a positive kavanah, such as when Aaron and Elazar brought the Ktoret, so V'ateyotzar HaMageifa, it was able to stop the plague. However, when there was a negative kavanah, negative intent, to rebel against Moshe, to rebel against Aaron, to rebel against the Torah itself, so in the very same Torah was the source of death and destruction. So we have here an example that is the intent of the person that governs how the and behavior of the person that governs the effect that it will have. We have another example of that in the Torah by the Porah Aduma. So the Porah Aduma, the Torah teaches us, is Betami Tahorim, and it's Betayr Tameim. The same sprinkling of water and ashes makes the one that sprinkles it Tameh. He is impure, but the one that receives it is cleansed and purified. So there also we have an example of an item in the Torah that, so to speak, depends on the circumstances, depends who sprinkles. It's the item itself, we would say, is almost neutral, but it has the ability to heal, and it has the ability to bring impurity upon the person. In a broader aspect, we can say this about the Torah itself. The Gemara says the famous statement, Zocha, if the person has merit, Naselo Sam Chaim, then the Torah is the elixir of life. The Torah gives him life in this world and in the next. It's the source of everything that's positive. Lo Zocha, if the person does not have merit, so even though he may be a great scholar, and even though he may know a great deal of Torah, the Torah then turns into poison for him. The Torah then affects him negatively. So we see from this concept that all of these things that the Torah talks about begins with the person himself. Why is he doing it? What is his intent? What is he looking to accomplish? So if he's looking to become an Eved Hashem, that's one thing. If he's looking for self-glorification or for any other ulterior motive, so then the Torah itself becomes, so to speak, a poisonous instrument that brings him to destruction. We see this in the physical world as well. I'm sure you will all notice that when the dentist takes an x-ray of your teeth, he's never in the room with you. Because the x-rays can be very negative. They can bring a person to having terrible diseases. On the other hand, the same x-ray is one of the treatments for the diseases. It's one of the methods of healing. So it's built into nature, so to speak, this idea of the dichotomy that exists within these structures that the Lord has given us. And the Torah is I think, the chief example of how we can see that. The fact that we have here a formula that is healing, and the same formula is destructive depending upon who is using it and what the intent was when it happens. And that's why Chazal say, Rachmana libo boy. The Rebbeinu Shalom wants our heart. He wants our intent. He wants us to cleanse ourselves from all of the outside influences that are so destructive upon us. If a person is able to do it, then all of these things become wonderful, become miraculous. All of them become samchayim. But if a person falls into the trap of self-aggrandizement, of not caring, of not really intending, of being false unto oneself, so then then the greater the scholar, the worse the situation. We have innumerable situations in Jewish history of great people with great knowledge and great intellect that were destructive to themselves and to Klal Yisrael, simply because of the fact that the proper kavanah, the proper intent was not there, and therefore that has an effect upon the item itself. Rabbi Hanania ben Akashi Omer Rotza HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakos Yisrael V'Ficha Chiv Elohem Torah Yisrael V'Amar Adonai Chafetz